never used to be afraid of the water. It changed the summer my cousin Ben and I stayed at my aunt's lake house in upstate New York. The lake was small, more like a giant pond, but it was still the best part of those slow July weeks. Until the lights started showing up. The first time I saw them, it was late. Everyone had gone to bed, and I was scrolling on my phone near the window. Out across the lake, I saw 3 white lights glowing just above the surface. They looked like flashlights moving in a line. Then they dipped under the water and vanished. I told myself it was a reflection. Maybe a boat. Maybe kids night fishing. Easy explanation. Next night, the same thing. This time Ben saw them too. He laughed it off, said it was ghost fishermen, and went back to his video game. But when the lights appeared again, closer to our dock, even he stopped smiling. We went outside with our own flashlight. The air smelled like wet metal and pine. The lake was so still it felt fake, like a sheet of black glass. Then something splashed once far out. The lights blinked twice, then disappeared again. Our aunt told us the lake used to have an old ferry dock before the bridge was built. People drowned there back in the 1950s, she said, pouring coffee the next morning. They say the current's strange around that spot. She laughed, but not in a funny way. Don't go swimming after dark, boys. We promised we wouldn't, but that night, Ben dared me to paddle out anyway. Just halfway, he said. We'll see if it's real. It was dumb, I know. But we were 16 and bored. So we took the old canoe and pushed off into the dark water. Halfway across, the lake felt endless. The moonlight showed ripples like thin silver wires. Then right under us, the 3 lights turned on again, this time glowing from below. Ben froze. Dude, that's right under us. I tried to joke. Maybe scuba divers. He shook his head. At midnight, the lights circled the canoe, slowly. Then the boat started to rock. Small waves, but wrong, like something moving in a rhythm. I leaned over and saw shapes below, but the water was too dark. Then one light shot straight up and hit the side of the canoe. A sound like metal scraping filled the air. Ben screamed and paddled hard. We didn't stop until the canoe hit the dock. When we looked back, the lake was calm again. No lights, no sound. Our aunt said it was probably kids with underwater drones. Those things are everywhere now. But when we checked the local Facebook group, nobody mentioned drones. Someone did post about strange lights near the North Cove, though. Same night, same time. For the rest of the week, we avoided the water. Every night, around midnight, we'd still see the glow from our window. Sometimes 2 lights, sometimes 4. Always drifting in circles. The night before we left, there was a thunderstorm. Rain slammed the roof. Around 1 a.m., Ben woke me up, pale as paper. "They're back," he whispered. Through the window, flashes of lightning showed figures standing on the opposite dock. Dark shapes, motionless. Every time lightning hit, they were a little closer to the water. Then one stepped in, splash, another followed. The third just sank like a stone. The storm cut power, and everything went black. When the lights came back, the figures were gone, but 3 pale glows drifted on the surface, exactly where they had stood. In the morning, the police were there. A neighbor's boat had washed up empty on our side of the lake. They said 3 teens had been missing since the night before. Divers found the boat capsized near the old ferry dock. Ben and I didn't tell anyone what we saw. What could we say? We watched 3 ghosts drown twice. That was 2 years ago. Last week I visited my aunt again. The lake looked peaceful. New dock, fresh paint, sunny sky. But when night came, I sat by the window just out of habit, and at exactly midnight, 3 faint lights appeared again, slowly rising from the water, then spreading out in a circle like they were searching for the shore. This time I didn't watch them vanish. I shut the curtains, turned off my phone, and locked the door, because I finally realized something. They weren't looking for help. They were looking for someone else to join them. I grew up near the coast of Maine, in a town so small we didn't even have a stoplight. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone went to the same beach every summer. I thought I knew that beach better than anyone, until the night I saw her under the pier. The pier was old. My dad said it had been built before World War II and somehow never replaced. The wood creaked when the tide came in, and barnacles made the posts look like they were wearing armor. I used to love walking there at low tide, collecting shells that had washed up. It always felt safe. Last August, my best friend Leah and I went there after a bonfire party. It was almost midnight. The moon was bright enough to paint silver lines on the water. The beach was empty except for us and the slow crash of the waves. We talked about senior year, about leaving town, about everything that felt big and scary. That's when we saw it, the light. A small white glow under the pier, moving slowly like someone walking with a lantern. Leah thought it was a fisherman. I thought it was a phone flashlight, but the way it bobbed just below the waterline didn't make sense. We walked closer. The air smelled like salt and rust. Each wave pushed cold foam over our feet. I called out, "Hey! You okay down there?" The light stopped moving. Then a few seconds later, it dipped beneath the surface and vanished. Leah grabbed my arm. "That's not funny," she said. "I didn't do anything," I told her. Then we both heard it, a single splash, like someone diving in, followed by the creak of the wood above us. We looked up. The pier stretched out like a skeleton over the black water. Something was dripping between the boards. Steady, slow drops that hit the surface like tiny heartbeats. We ran back to the bonfire spot, but everyone had already gone home. Our footprints were the only ones left in the sand. Leah wanted to call the police, but what would we even say? There's a light and some dripping sounds under the pier, so we went home instead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the dripping in my head. Around 3 a.m., I looked out my window toward the beach. From where my house sat on the hill, I could see a faint glow under the pier again. Same place, same size, gently moving like it was calling someone. By morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. Tide reflections, maybe. But then we found the shoe. It was tangled in seaweed near the pier, small, white, and muddy. The local news said a college girl named Emily Harris had gone missing 3 nights earlier. She'd been staying with friends in the next town over. The photo they showed made my stomach twist. She was wearing the same kind of white sneakers. Police came, searched the beach, and marked off the pier with yellow tape. Divers spent hours in the water, but found nothing. After 2 days, the tape came down, and everything went back to normal. Or maybe everyone just pretended it did. Leah stopped talking to me about it. Whenever I mentioned the lights, she'd shut down, saying, "Don't start that again." She transferred schools 2 months later. I can't blame her. I thought that would be the end of it, until last week. I came home for winter break and walked the beach alone. It was cold, the kind of cold that makes your breath look like smoke. The tide was high, and the pier looked even older than I remembered. Halfway down the beach, I noticed something shining near the waterline. It was another light, soft, steady, bluish-white. My first thought was a reflection, but the sky was too cloudy for moonlight. I crouched to look closer. The light was coming from beneath the surface, just deep enough that the waves barely touched it. I took a few steps closer, and the sand under my feet started to sink. Then the light moved. It drifted sideways, under the pier, slow and smooth, like it was waiting for me to follow. Every part of me said don't. But curiosity is louder than fear when you're standing in silence. I walked until the cold water reached my knees. The light stopped moving and began to rise. At first, I thought it was seaweed. Then I saw her face. Pale, hair floating like dark ribbons, eyes wide open but calm. She was staring right at me from just beneath the surface. I stumbled back, fell into the wet sand and scrambled away. When I looked again, the light and the girl were gone. Only the reflection of the pier lights remained, flickering and weak. I ran home soaking wet. My parents said it must have been my imagination, a trick of light, maybe stress. But when I checked the local paper the next day, there was another story. A young fisherman missing since Thursday night. His last known location. Under the pier. Police divers searched again. They found nothing this time either. But the reporter mentioned something strange. 3 officers swore they saw a faint underwater light while they were in the water, but every time they got close, it went out. That was 5 days ago. Last night, I drove to the beach again. I told myself I just wanted to see the sunrise. But I parked near the boardwalk and waited. At exactly midnight, I saw it again. The same glow, the same spot. This time, it wasn't alone. 2 lights floated beside it, moving in a slow circle like they were dancing beneath the waves, and for just 1 second I thought I saw 3 faces looking up at me. Emily's, the fisherman's, and someone who looked an awful lot like Leah. I don't go near the pier anymore. Sometimes, though, when the tide is high and the wind blows in from the east, I can still see those lights through my bedroom window. People say it's plankton or reflections from passing ships. But I know better. The pier doesn't creak because it's old. It creaks because something under it keeps trying to come back up. When I was 15, my dad bought a used fishing boat. It wasn't anything fancy, just a small white motorboat with peeling paint and a rusty ladder. He said it would be our weekend escape. At first, it really was. We'd take it out every Saturday, pack sandwiches and fish until sunset. But that changed one morning when the radio turned itself on. The boat had an old marine radio, big, with a cracked dial and a smell like burnt plastic. Dad said it hadn't worked in years, so when it started crackling during our first trip of the summer, we both looked at each other in surprise. "Maybe it's picking up some old signal," Dad said. The voice came through faintly, static, then a whisper. "Help, still here. I'm south, Doc." He frowned. "Probably interference." He shut it off and went back to fishing. But the words stuck with me all day. The next weekend we went out again. Same lake, same calm water, same broken radio. Halfway across, the engine started to stutter. The boat slowed until we were just drifting. "Don't worry," Dad said, leaning over the motor. "Probably the spark plug." That's when the radio came alive again. "Still here," the voice said, clearer this time. "Please, don't leave." Dad yanked the wire out completely. Silence. We paddled back to shore and decided to take a break from boating for a few weeks. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The voice didn't sound mechanical. It sounded wet, like someone speaking with water in their throat. A month later, I overheard my dad on the phone with the man who'd sold him the boat. The seller mentioned his brother used to own it, but he'd had an accident a few years earlier. Something about falling overboard during a storm and never being found. Dad never told me that part. After that call, he avoided the lake completely. By late July, curiosity got the better of me. While Dad was at work, I convinced my friend Nate to come out with me. The boat had sat under the tarp all summer, still tied to the dock. When I pulled the cover off, the smell hit first, damp metal and mildew. We started the motor and it actually worked fine. The water was flat and glassy, the sky pale grey. Everything looked harmless. About 10 minutes out, Nate pointed to something floating ahead. It looked like a piece of wood, but as we got closer, I saw it was a broken life jacket. Half rotted, one strap torn clean off. "Maybe from a storm," Nate said. Then he froze. "Do you hear that?" At first I didn't. Just the hum of the engine and the slap of waves. Then it came, a faint tapping on the hull, like someone knocking from underneath. We looked over the side. Nothing but deep green water. The tapping stopped. Then the radio, unplugged, dead, sputtered to life again, a man's voice, low and broken. "Turn back!" "Before it finds you." Nate's face went white. "Dude, it's not even connected." He pulled the power cord out completely, but the voice kept going. "Too late," it said. "It's awake." Something hit the bottom of the boat so hard it rattled the cooler. Nate screamed, and I gunned the motor. The lake erupted in ripples behind us, like something was following. The boat jumped once, then again like something large was bumping it from below. We didn't stop until the dock was in sight. When we told my dad, he was furious. "You took that thing out without me." I tried to explain about the radio, the tapping, the voice, but he just stared at the lake, silent. Finally, he said, "That boat belonged to a man named Ellis Crane. They never found his body. Just the boat drifting in the fog. He sold it the next day." I thought that was the end, but a few months later, Dad got a call from the marina. The new owner brought it in for repairs, the man said. "There's something weird with the wiring and, we found this wedged under the floor panel. It was an old waterproof camera. The last photo was blurry, but you could make out a man's arm reaching toward the lens, and behind him, the outline of another figure rising from the water. Dad deleted the photo right after seeing it. He wouldn't talk about it again. Years passed. I moved away, Every now and then, I'd think about that day, the voice, the tapping, the feeling that something alive was under us. 2 weeks ago, I got a message from Nate. He sent a photo of a small white motorboat sitting on a different lake, hundreds of miles away. The name painted on the side made my stomach drop. Ellis's Echo. Nate said the boat had been auctioned and resold several times. The new owner, some guy in Michigan, claimed the radio still picked up strange signals when the fog rolled in. He even posted a clip online. It was faint, full of static, but I could still make out the words, "Still here! South Dock, please." That night, I went down to our old lake out of curiosity. The docks were empty. The water looked like black glass again. But just before I turned to leave, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks on the underside of the old wooden pier. The sound came again, slower this time, like something waiting for an answer. Then faintly, across the still water, I heard the whir of a small motor. I looked up and froze. Out in the fog, a single white boat drifted toward me, no one visible at the wheel. I stepped back as it floated closer. The radio inside was glowing through the cabin window, even though the engine was off. The speaker crackled. "Come aboard," the voice said softly. "We need a hand." I ran. Didn't look back until I was halfway up the hill. When I did, the boat was gone. Not sinking. Not moving. Just gone. People keep saying I must have imagined it. That it was mist or sound bouncing off the water. Maybe they're right. But sometimes, when I'm near any lake at night, I still hear faint static coming from nowhere. And if I listen too closely, it always ends the same way. A quiet voice whispering through the wind. "Still here! Waiting for you."